Welcome to Confessions by Banana Ketchup. Because he is standing right behind you, hunting in my house with some evidence to support it. I've been sitting on this for a bit for a few reasons. It is really long. I wanted to be able to gather facts to support my story, and quite frankly, I didn't want to type it up while in my house. As you can tell with the stories on my page, I have been engulfed in the grey of this world since I was a child. Until recently, I have never met someone who is as sensitive as me. It was enlightening and equally terrifying. So here is my story. I've been renting my house from a family member for several years now. Since day one, I knew it was haunted. I could feel the energy change the moment I stepped inside, but I could also tell it wasn't necessarily negative. I'm not a stranger to the paranormal, so when little things would happen like items moving, go missing, inaudible conversations in other rooms, or even my dog looking at an empty corner or wall, I wouldn't usually react. I even nicknamed the ghost Bernadette and would jokingly ask it to stop. However, within the last 6 months, the activity has intensified. I have had individuals in my house who are complete skeptics, but they have witnessed glasses thrown across the room and shattered everywhere. Pictures falling from the wall, someone walking down the empty hallway, hearing it, and hearing people talking that weren't there. I even had to have my brother check that my gas alarm was still active because of the random areas in the house smelling like rotten eggs. Halloween night, I had a very small get-together, 6 people. One of my guests brought her wife, who I had only met one other time. While my friends were playing games and passing out candy, my friend's wife, we'll call her Emily, pulled me to the side, seemingly upset, and stated she needed to discuss something with me. She first asked if I knew about Mary. I'm running names through my head that my co-worker had mentioned, and I've never heard of a Mary. I obviously tell her no, and she proceeds to tell me a very detailed story about my house. She explained that I had 3 spirits in my house. A spirit named Mary, a spirit named Franklin, and that I had a spirit who is always with me named Gary, she thinks. She stated Mary had died in the house a long time ago. Franklin had died on the land before Mary from a plowing accident and was still in his death state. She also confirmed my suspicions of extra activity. A few nights prior, in the middle of the night, I was in bed and jumped up from my sleep from a huge bang against my bedroom wall and a picture falling onto the end of the bed. Obviously, I was startled and especially spooked when I could see the indentation in my wall from what appeared to be something that had hit it. I jokingly said, "Not cool, Bernadette," and went back to bed. Emily knew about this. She knew he had hit my wall and said it was Franklin's way of trying to get my attention. That when things are thrown in the house or fall off the wall, that it is Franklin. Apparently, he's angry because I don't react. In my mind at this moment, I'm thinking, who the hell is this woman? I don't know her, and I haven't told anything to her wife about my creepy house. I'm open with my experiences on here, but I'm very hush in person because of others' reactions. So I ask, how do you know this stuff? And her response still, as I'm typing this, chills me to my bones. Because he is standing right behind you. First reaction is to look behind me, nothing. Second reaction is to ask why I can't see him. He doesn't want me to. Third reaction is, why does he want to scare me? He wants attention. Since that night, the activity in my previously mildly creepy house has been off the charts. I don't get spooked easy. I have seen things that you see on horror movies, but my house is scary. The energy has shifted. I feel like I'm constantly on fight or flight mode. I'm typing this at work because I feel like someone is constantly looking over my shoulder, and I don't want whoever it is to read this. I sound crazy. It's just my dog and me in the house, and even he has been acting differently. I've caught him multiple times sitting in the hall looking at nothing, whimpering, and then he runs under the bed. I literally have to drag him out. When I'm changing clothes or taking a shower, I feel uncomfortable because I feel someone is watching me. The house is nearly unbearable to live in at the moment, and I've been at a loss of how to make it go back to my mildly spooky house. I have used my sage twice now, and I think it just pisses Franklin off. With that being said, I have amazing friends and connections to the historical site in my town. With some research, I found Mary and some other interesting details. Mary Frank, 48, died suddenly in my house on August 26, 1919 from neuralgia. Her spouse, Charles Frank, held the funeral in my house. I haven't been able to find a Franklin yet. However, before the Franks occupied my house, it was a stable for horses. It could be a huge coincidence that Mary's last name is Frank, and maybe Emily didn't get the clear message. I'm honestly not sure. I have asked her since, and she still thinks his name is Franklin. She has even come back to my house and told him to stop. He won't listen. I do plan to keep researching the area for a man named Franklin, but I'm not sure there will be any documentation. Another interesting thing is that I did know a Gary, and he has actually been brought up before. Gary was my mother's best friend's husband who passed away from a heart attack when I was young. At the time, we lived on 20 plus acres of land, and he loved to go hunting on our property. When he passed, it was his wishes to have his ashes spread on our land. I was told many years ago that Gary watched over me. I know the activity in my house is increasing. I'm not 100% sure why. Maybe because I'm more aware now, but I don't feel in danger. I never have because I know Gary is there, now from multiple sources. Thank you, LoveImperfecty, the author. All my paranormal experiences. I'm a male 23, but had a cluster of experiences around the age of 15-16 years old. I don't know why it was so clustered, and I'm very skeptical and try to reason with myself. I'm not really afraid of paranormal things, but find it interesting. Some of these are put under could be my perception, meaning I saw a glimpse of something and thought it was something that it wasn't. At the time, all of these were fairly scary. Right now, if it were to happen to me, I don't know how I'd react. First experience was when I was 12. I audibly heard the TV playing after waking up in the middle of the night and went to say hello to my parents. Everyone was asleep. 12 again, went to use the toilet and noticed a dark figure outside just standing there. 14-15 was very depressed and started to have recurring nightmares. The nightmare was always the same. I was stuck in my house and all the lights didn't work. It would always finish with the same demonic figure jumping into my body to end the dream. Around this time, I would constantly wake up in the middle of the night to light tapping under my bed. Sometimes instead of tapping, I'd have my sheets pulled completely over my head. It was Australian summer, so I would wake up because it was too hot and I couldn't breathe. For the record, it's been years since this and I've never done this. I honestly don't believe I pulled the covers over my head. Sometimes my arm would just jerk from under the covers to on top of the covers. Sometimes would happen to my leg too. Reasoned with myself that this was just electrical spasms, even though a few times it was a full motion. I didn't do it. One night, I woke up to my younger brother crying, 9 at the time. His room was across from mine, so I just told him to go back to sleep. I was a grumpy teenager. I noticed his figure at the front of my door. I followed his figure as he walked into my room and next to my bed. I assumed he was trying to turn on my lamp to get comfort from his crying. I waited a bit for him to get it, but he just didn't, so I got out of bed and turned on the room light at the door. I remember clearly looking at this dark figure and thinking, wouldn't it be funny if nothing was there? And bam, light on, figure gone. My brother was standing in the middle of his room crying and jumped straight into bed when he saw me. I told him to go see my mom and he ran out of the room still weeping. Once while in the family room, playing games with my grandparents and siblings, I heard this classical demonic voice right behind me. I could feel the breath. I thought it was my grandparents playing a prank on me, but when I turned around, they were completely fixated on my siblings playing games. This one I wasn't afraid, but it was very weird. I was just walking past my kitchen and I just had a feeling to look at the clock. I did, and as if on a cue, the minute hand moved 10 minutes forward on its own. I just sighed and thought, now the clock is not on time, so I moved the minute hand back to where it was. Last one. I had just came home from being dropped off by my parents because I was about to be picked up by a friend to go out. My parents went back to the family outing that they were having at the park 20 minutes away, so I was 100% alone. During this time, I read books, so when I got home, I took off my shoes and placed my book on the kitchen counter. I placed my book so half of it was still hanging off the counter. Anyway, I walked into my room and heard a loud slap. I thought, my book must have fallen off the counter. But when I got into the kitchen, my book was still half hanging off. But instead, my shoes had been chucked across the room. Originally, they were next to the book, but instead had been thrown a couple of feet in opposite direction. I seriously considered that I was being attacked by demonic forces around this time, and I spoke out when my shoes got thrown across the room and told it to leave in Jesus' name. After that, the experiences mostly stopped. I still had the occasional sleep paralysis, but that's it. My depression also magically lifted once the experiences stopped. Hence why I believe it's possible that it was just my perception, but I could just be hoping for that because it's easier to believe. Thanks for reading. Thank you, SombreLook, the author. Thank you for watching, everyone. If you already haven't, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any new episodes. See you again soon, and until then, please, be safe.